Commissioner Gordon, Bane has escaped.
The moment a man ascends beyond the common, he ceases to belong to them. He is no longer one of many. He is apart, separate, untouchable. The world may bow before him, but it will never embrace him. The stronger he becomes, the more he drifts from the warmth of companionship. For true power breeds distance. Those who claim loyalty do so under the weight of his position, not from an unshakable bond. And when the winds shift, when the throne is threatened, those who once stood by his side will vanish, revealing the truth that a king has no friends, only subjects and enemies. To seek friendship as a ruler is to invite weakness. There are no equals to the man who commands. The moment he lowers himself in search of kinship, he compromises his standing. Those around him, sensing an opportunity, will inch closer, not out of affection, but out of hunger. They will smile, they will nod, they will whisper words of admiration. But beneath their flattery lies ambition. They do not wish to stand beside him. They wish to stand in his place. A king who forgets this, who believes in the illusion of trust, does not rule for long. His fate is not written in conquest, but in betrayal. Those he holds dearest will become the architects of his downfall, for power is not something shared without cost. History is littered with the corpses of rulers who mistook allies for brothers. The closer they allowed another to stand, the sharper the dagger that would find their back. Julius Caesar trusted Brutus, only to be struck down in the heart of the Senate. Napoleon surrounded himself with officers, only to be cast aside the moment his power waned. Even kings crowned in glory eventually find themselves alone, abandoned by those who once swore undying loyalty. The cycle does not change because human nature does not change. Those who crave proximity to power do not seek to serve. It is ambition that draws them close, a thirst that cannot be quenched until they have taken what is not theirs. A king understands this truth early, or he does not remain a king for long. He does not mistake smiles for sincerity, nor does he trust words over actions. He listens, but he does not confide. He rules, but he does not share. The weight of the crown is his alone to bear, and so he embraces the solitude that comes with it. The masses may admire him, they may cheer his victories, but he knows their praise is conditional. Should fortune turn, should another rise in prominence, their cheers will shift without hesitation. Loyalty is a luxury of the powerless. Those who lead must live without it. There is no warmth in power. A ruler's heart is not a place for affection, but for calculation. He does not waste time seeking comfort in others, for comfort is a trap. A mind softened by attachment is a mind easily manipulated. A ruler who fears isolation will surround himself with those who claim to care, but in doing so he welcomes his own undoing. He will confide, he will relax, he will believe that those beside him are there for him rather than what he provides. And the moment he lowers his guard, the moment he allows himself to need them, they will remind him of the truth. A king stands alone. Many men dream of power, but few can withstand the solitude it demands. They believe rulership is the height of human achievement, an existence of wealth, dominion, and control. But they fail to see what it takes. They see the throne, but not the emptiness that surrounds it. They see the authority, but not the paranoia it breeds. To rule is to exist in a world where every relationship is a transaction, where every alliance is temporary, where every conversation is laced with hidden intent. The one who sits upon the throne is not loved, nor is he understood. He is feared, envied, and watched. The closer he allows another to stand, the more dangerous they become. It is not cruelty that makes a king distant. It is survival. The ruler who does not trust is the ruler who endures. He does not mistake solitude for weakness, for he understands it as his greatest strength. It shields him from the influence of false allies, from the distractions of shallow bonds. The man who requires friendship to function is vulnerable, for his need will be exploited. A king needs nothing but his own mind, his own will, his own unwavering ability to see through deception. To accept loneliness is to accept the truth of power. Those who walk this path do so without companions, without equals, without safety in numbers. Many seek to rule, but only those willing to sever their ties with comfort can withstand what comes with it. They must bury sentiment beneath strategy, discard attachment in favor of control. They must learn to see the world not as a place of bonds and shared trust, but as a battlefield where every individual is a moving piece, every interaction a calculated exchange. To rule is to know that the world does not gift power. It takes it from those too weak to wield it. And when it is taken by those who once called themselves friends. The ruler who survives is the one who understands this before it is too late. He does not allow sentiment to erode his position. He does not offer his trust freely, nor does he believe in the illusion of unconditional loyalty. He walks the path of leadership knowing that his strength does not come from those around him, but from his ability to walk alone without hesitation. Power is not given freely. Every interaction, every alliance, every word exchanged is a transaction. Those who fail to see this live under an illusion, believing in sincerity where none exists. They mistake kindness for loyalty, flattery for admiration, companionship for trust. But a ruler does not have the luxury of naivety. He understands that every person who enters his presence comes with a motive, an expectation, a silent calculation of what they stand to gain. Whether it is wealth, influence, protection, or access, no one aligns themselves with power without reason. And so the king does not resent this truth. He wields it. He does not ask if a relationship is genuine, for he already knows the answer. Instead, he decides how to control the terms of the exchange, how to ensure that he remains the one dictating the cost. Every favor granted is a debt created. Every promise given is leverage secured. Those who fail to recognize this find themselves enslaved by obligations they never intended to take on. A ruler does not allow himself to be placed in such a position. He does not hand out generosity without ensuring the return will be greater. He understands that goodwill is a currency, one that can be spent wisely or squandered carelessly. And so he does not waste it. He does not offer kindness for free, nor does he extend protection without purpose. If one seeks his aid, they must first prove their worth. If they request his guidance, they must first demonstrate their usefulness. Nothing is given, everything is earned. This is the foundation upon which power is maintained. Some recoil at this reality, clinging to the belief that relationships should exist beyond self-interest. But such beliefs do not belong to rulers. Those who lead cannot afford to operate on sentiment alone. Sentiment blinds. It weakens the ability to see people as they truly are. Opportunistic, driven by their own survival, their own desires. A ruler does not hold grudges, nor does he allow emotions to cloud his judgment. Every situation is simply a matter of transaction, an exchange of power, influence, or resources. Even betrayal is not personal. It is merely a shift in the balance of interests. Those who deceive do so because they believe the reward outweighs the risk. The ruler does not waste time lamenting treachery. He only ensures that the cost of such an action is so high that none dare attempt it again. To rule is to decide the terms of every exchange. Those who fail to set the terms will have them set for them. A ruler does not allow himself to be used without compensation. He does not give without ensuring that the act will serve his greater purpose. Even acts of generosity are strategic, designed to place the recipient in a position of dependence, to create a future obligation that will be repaid when the time is right. Those who do not understand this move through life at the mercy of those who do. They give without thinking, they trust without verifying, they expect reciprocity where none is promised. And when the inevitable betrayal comes, they stand in shock, unable to comprehend why the loyalty they assumed was never returned. A ruler does not make this mistake. He does not expect what is not explicitly secured. Every conversation is a negotiation. Every alliance is conditional. There are no exceptions. Whether the interaction is positive or negative, it serves a function, a purpose within the larger structure of power. Those who oppose the ruler do so because they see something to gain. Those who align with him do so because they recognize the benefits of proximity. He does not allow himself to become dependent on the approval or validation of others. He moves with the certainty that all who surround him have their own reasons, their own motives. But as long as he remains in control of the transaction, he remains in control of the outcome. This is the nature of rulership, understanding that nothing is given freely, that every interaction carries a price, and that the one who understands this best will always hold the upper hand. The difference between those who rule and those who are ruled is not merely power, but awareness. The ruler sees the world as it is, not as he wishes it to be. He does not waste energy on resentment or disillusionment. He accepts that every situation is transactional and ensures that he is the one who dictates the terms. Those who deny this truth are the ones who suffer under it, endlessly giving without understanding why they receive nothing in return. They believe that sincerity will be met with sincerity, that their sacrifices will be acknowledged, that their goodwill will be repaid. But the ruler knows better. He does not offer himself up to be used. He does not expect fairness. He only ensures that every action taken serves his vision, his legacy, his continued reign. To navigate power is to master the art of controlled exchange. The ruler does not simply give, he invests. He does not simply receive, he collects. Every decision, no matter how small, is a movement within the greater game. If he punishes, it is not out of personal vengeance, but to send a message. If he rewards, it is not out of sentiment, but to reinforce control. Even his moments of restraint are calculated, designed to serve a greater strategy. He does not react to the world, he shapes it. Those who fail to recognize this, who operate on instinct rather than intent, who believe in the illusion of selfless loyalty, find themselves discarded, outplayed, forgotten. Some will claim that this is a lonely existence, that to see every interaction as a transaction is to strip life of meaning. But those who speak this way misunderstand the nature of leadership. The ruler does not seek comfort in illusions. He does not chase friendships that exist only as long as his power does. He accepts the reality that all things are conditional, that trust is never unconditional, that every word spoken in his presence is spoken for a reason. And in accepting this, he finds not loneliness, but clarity. He does not resent the nature of the world, he wields it. He does not fall victim to deception, he sees through it. This is the cost of the throne, and it is the price he willingly pays. A ruler must retreat into silence to understand the weight of his own existence. The world is filled with noise, distractions that cloud judgment, whispers of influence that manipulate the mind into seeking approval rather than control. But a king does not have the luxury of shared thoughts, of collective decisions, of voices shaping his path. He must sit with his own mind, alone, uninterrupted, until the truth emerges. Prolonged periods of solitude are not a burden, they are a necessity. They strip away illusions, removing the clutter of expectation, the pressure of opinions, the contamination of external influence. Only in isolation does a man come to terms with the reality of his place in the world, with the depth of responsibility that rests upon him. He sees clearly what others fear to confront, that control is an illusion, fleeting and fragile, but within that small measure of control lies the only meaning that exists. The need for companionship is a distraction. Those who fear solitude will do anything to escape it, filling their lives with unnecessary attachments, seeking validation from others to reassure themselves of their worth. But a ruler does not have that option. He cannot afford to let his identity be defined by the presence of others. The moment he relies on external forces to affirm his purpose, he loses the very thing that sets him apart, his ability to lead without permission. Solitude is not a punishment, it is the forge in which clarity is tempered. It forces a man to strip away every false belief, every comforting lie, every illusion that shields him from the truth. Without this process, he remains a prisoner to the expectations of those around him, never truly ruling, only responding. To lead is to be isolated. The further one ascends, the fewer stand beside them. The throne is not a seat of companionship, but a vantage point of singular perspective. A ruler who refuses solitude, who seeks counsel in every decision, who fills his days with endless interaction, will never truly understand himself. He will be a product of the voices around him, shaped by their influence rather than his own will. This is why so many fail when they reach power. They cannot bear the silence. They fear what they will find in the absence of distraction. But it is in that very silence where the mind sharpens, where the illusions fall away, where the true ruler is formed. There is no shortcut to self-mastery. No conversation, no book, no guidance from another will provide the answers that solitude can. To sit in silence is to confront the weight of existence, to strip life down to its essential parts. In the absence of others, a man is forced to ask himself what remains. Does he exist for himself, or does he exist for the approval of others? Is his ambition his own, or has it been shaped by expectation? These questions cannot be answered in the company of others. They require solitude, long and uninterrupted, until the mind no longer seeks distraction, no longer yearns for external confirmation. Only then can a ruler truly understand the limited control he has, and more importantly, how to wield it effectively. To rule, even in the smallest sense, is to navigate chaos with precision. The world is unpredictable, the circumstances ever-shifting. Most are controlled by these external forces, reacting to events rather than dictating them. But a ruler sees through this illusion. He recognizes that absolute control is impossible, that the only power he truly has is the ability to command himself. And that command is only developed through isolation. The undisciplined seek comfort in numbers, believing that through the collective they will find security. But the ruler knows that security is an illusion. He does not seek to control the world, he seeks to master the one thing that can be mastered: his own mind. Periods of prolonged solitude teach a ruler his limits. They force him to acknowledge what is within his grasp and what will forever remain beyond it. The desperate try to control everything, their environment, the people around them, the outcome of every decision. But this is a fool's pursuit. The ruler understands that his control is minimal, that the forces beyond him will always exist. But within that small realm of influence, within that limited scope of power, he can shape himself into something unshakable. He cannot dictate the tides of fate, but he can determine how he responds to them. He cannot control the loyalty of others, but he can control his own expectations. This understanding is not reached in the company of others. It is found in the depths of solitude, where no one is present to feed illusions or soften reality. Many seek power without understanding the cost. They desire the throne without realizing what it demands. They believe leadership is about command, about dominance, about bending the world to their will. But the truth is far simpler and far more brutal. A ruler does not command the world, he commands himself. He does not control fate, he prepares for its arrival. And in this realization, solitude becomes a necessity, not a burden. It is in the absence of others that the mind sharpens, that clarity emerges, that the ruler sees reality as it is, not as he wishes it to be. A king who cannot be alone cannot rule. If he seeks companionship as a means of avoiding himself, he is not fit to wear the crown. The weight of power is carried alone, and those who attempt to share it will only find betrayal waiting for them. This is not cynicism, but reality. The higher one rises, the fewer can relate. The further one ascends, the more distant the voices of others become. And at the peak, there is only silence. Those who cannot bear that silence fall, seeking the comfort of false friendships, of alliances built on convenience rather than loyalty. But those who embrace it, who welcome the isolation, who use it to sharpen their perception, become unshakable. Every ruler, every leader, every person who has ever held power has faced the same truth. No one will ever truly understand their burden. No one will carry it for them. And the moment they seek companionship as a means of lightening the load, they set themselves up for failure. The throne is not a place of shared experience. It is a place of singular responsibility. Those who sit upon it do so alone, not because they wish to, but because they must. And in that solitude, they either find themselves mastering the limited control they have over their existence, or they lose themselves, grasping for connections that will only lead to their downfall. Rulership is not about dominion over people, it is about dominion over chaos. The world does not hand out order, it does not offer meaning wrapped in a perfect design. It is wild, untamed, indifferent to the desires of those who live within it. Most wander aimlessly, consumed by forces they neither control nor understand. They react rather than dictate, complain rather than construct, waiting for the world to shape itself in a way that makes sense to them. But the one who seeks to rule knows that meaning is not discovered, it's extracted. It is torn from the fabric of uncertainty, forced into existence through sheer will. This is not a path that welcomes companionship because few possess the discipline to persist through that level of isolation. The one who bends life to his will must do so alone, without the crutch of external validation, without the comfort of collective agreement. Chaos is the natural state of existence. It is the silent, ever-present force that reduces civilizations to dust, that erases legacies, that consumes the unprepared. It does not ask for permission, nor does it wait for understanding. It moves without conscience, without hesitation. To rule is not to remove chaos, but to tame it, to carve purpose from it, to stand against its overwhelming tide and impose a structure where none was given.